Okay, so this meeting is being recorded. Let me go ahead and share my screen. And I'm going to share screen 2. So if somebody on the Zoom can let me know if they can see the presentation.
It's loading up. I think it'll be here momentarily.
Okay.
Maybe. There you go. Okay. You're.
Okay, beautiful. Well, welcome to the Murray Amateur Radio Club's Back to Basics class, the first Thursday of the month, it being October 2nd. It is amazing how quickly the year has gone by. I thought they went by when I had kids living at the house. It is going by a lot faster. Crazy stuff. Today, we are going to talk about BALUNs. And everybody has probably seen a BALUN, but not realized what they were looking at. So, in particular, because the subject of BALUNs is it can become quite involved, I'm only going to talk about the very first type of BALUN, which is called a 1-to-1 BALUN. Okay. There's a 1-to-4 BALUN. Then we have UNUNs, which is 49-to-1. And there's all kinds of different types of these devices. And we are just going to talk about the 1-to-1 BALUN. Once you understand the 1-to-1 BALUN, then you'll understand the rest of them. Okay? So let's go ahead and continue on. First of all, words are everything. And so let's first define what a BALUN is. The word BALUN is actually a conjunction of two words. It is combined words of balanced and unbalanced. Balanced and unbalanced what? Well, that's the next one there. It's a device that transitions between a balanced and an unbalanced transmission line. Okay, so just looking at this, we're talking about a transmission line. And that is the line that you have your radio and you have your coax that plugs into the radio. That coax is the start of the transmission line that goes to the antenna. Okay, so up until it gets to the antenna, that whole thing is called a transmission line. Okay, now we could have things in between the antenna and the radio. That's still part of the transmission line. Okay, so that's what we're talking about. So it converts a signal with a single reference point, which is, we're going to learn what an unbalanced is, to a differential signal. A differential signal is let me turn on my, where is my laser? What? I don't have a laser. Do you see my?
Denied.
No. Denied. Yes, I've been denied. Okay. So the second definition there, or the second bullet point, it says it is a device that helps transition between balanced, in parentheses, differential. Okay, so the word differential and balanced are together, and unbalanced, single-ended. And you're gonna learn what that means. Okay, and so the only thing a BALUN does is very simple. It makes your radio able to talk to your antenna from a unbalanced transmission line to what the antenna is looking for, a balanced transmission line. And we're going to explain that. So no worries. So what is a balanced and unbalanced signal? That's another definition. So let's talk about the balanced systems. This is just talking about the balanced part of it, balanced, unbalanced. So this is the BA part of BALUN. What is a balanced system? In a balanced system, you have two conductors that carry signals of equal magnitude. What does magnitude mean? Anybody? Strength. Okay. Let's put it in volts. Okay. Two conductors carrying equal signals of equal magnitude. So you have two conductors and they're both carrying 300 volts, okay? Or 600 volts or 300 milliamps or whatever the value is, right? So they're carrying signals of equal magnitude but with opposite phases. Oh, now you've learned in the electromagnetic an RF signal, an EMF electromagnetic signal, you have these wavelengths, right? You have a sine wave, right? That's what RF looks like, is one big sine wave, right? As a matter of fact, as a technician, you have to know a little bit about the length of the wave. What's that called? What's the length of the wave called in ham radio talk? What is it? Nope.
Wavelength.
Wavelength. The length of the wave is called a wavelength. Okay. Now, what is the frequency of the wavelength? What's that called? How many times it oscillates? What is it? Yeah. What is it per second?
Sine waves per second.
Which is the frequency. Okay. So I gave away the answer. So, okay. So, and so we're going to learn. Let's see. I don't have the camera on like that, so I'm just going to explain it. Actually, I have pictures, so I'm not going to worry about it. But you're going to see that the sine wave will be in opposite phases, and I'll show you what that means. In other words, in a balanced system, just know they have two conductors carrying signals of equal magnitude, but they're opposites. They're exact opposites. If one's doing plus 30 volts, the other one is negative 30 volts, okay? That's a loose translation, but you get the idea. Whatever happens to the one signal, the opposite is happening on the other side. You can imagine putting a mirror on that signal, and when that signal comes up, the other side comes down at the same time. Okay, they're out of phase. They're actually in phase, 180 degrees opposed from one another. Okay, if that makes sense. This design, and this is something that happens in the system. This design ensures that the EMF field, the electromagnetic field generated by the two signals, cancel each other out. So, okay, why do I want my signals to cancel each other out? It allows your balanced systems to be highly resistant to external noise and interference. Since both conductors contribute equally to the signal transmission, any noise picked up along the line is canceled out. Okay. As a matter of fact, actually, yeah, the next bullet point shows us this. This noise rejection feature makes balanced systems an ideal environment where maintaining signal integrity works great. Okay, as in high-speed communications networks. What's is Cat 5, Cat 3, Cat 6 Ethernet cable made out of? Wires. Yeah, what kind of wires? What are the wires doing?
Twisted pair.
They are twisted pair. Okay, that is, huh? And they're real tiny, 26 gauge. Yes. And professional audio systems, the XLR cable does the same thing. This is why you can have 1,000-foot of a microphone cable or 1,000-foot rung of Ethernet cable without any noise coming into it, because what happens is the device that that is dealing with the signals, it reads the original signal level, the noise is canceled out. And so all it hears is the good signal. Okay. So if you have an XLR, a mic cable that is a balanced, well, an XLR is a balanced system, then you don't have any. This is why when you go to rock bands, you don't hear all this feedback and stuff, because all the signaling, all the noise stuff. And when I say noise, I'm not talking about the actual rock band and the crowd noise. I'm talking about electronic noise. Okay. Have you ever seen a data closet where you have just a ton of wires that are piled on top of one another, right? It doesn't affect the equipment because all the noise, all the interference is all canceled out. Okay, it's crazy business how that works. So let's talk about a little bit more about differential signaling, which is balanced signaling. Okay, differential and balanced are the same thing. So, and I've already talked about this. Differential signaling is using two complementary signals, 180 degrees out of phase from one another. It sends the same electrical signal on a differential pair of signals and on its own conductor. So we have two conductors doing their own signal. Electrically, the two conductors carry voltage signals which are equal in magnitude but opposite polarity. Okay, I just want to bring that home to you. That is very important. The receiving circuit responds to the difference between the two signals, which actually results in a signal with a magnitude twice as large. As a matter of fact, here is what a differential signal looks like. We have some source, and it is sending out a pulse. In this case, this is actually using when I pulled this from the internet, it was using a digital, it was a explanation in digital electronics and how it was doing stuff. So that's why the input pulse, I'm going to put it in RF terms, or in terms that we use for radio waves. Okay. What does RF stand for? Radio frequency. Okay. So anytime I say RF, I'm just talking about the sine wave that's coming out of the antenna. Okay. So this pulse, the source is the radio. The input pulse is actually the electromagnetic force coming from the radio on the transmission line. Okay. And in a differential signal or a balanced transmission line, they come out this way. And then the other side of it is the output pulse. You see the output pulse where look at how high the input pulse square wave is, okay? And look how high the output pulse is, twice as big, okay? So it combines it. As a matter of fact, the next screen shows you that it adds those two, taking away the noise, and you have an output pulse which is twice the magnitude as the original signal, because it combines them. Okay, so that's a differential signal. That is that allows you to run your antenna lines for 500 feet to your antenna tower. Okay, you can't do it with just coax cable. Okay, or rather, you can't do it with cheap coax cable. You can do it with some very, very expensive cable, but that stuff runs about $300 a foot. Okay. And it's about this big. They use them on AM transmission lines, right? They go out for a quarter mile to the antenna systems. Okay. Um, you, there's another way to deal with that. Okay. So, again, if anybody has any questions on anything that I'm saying, please stop me. If a concept is not clear, let me know, okay? And just know that there is no such thing as a dumb question. The only thing that's dumb in here is the instructor trying to answer the question, okay?
you consider it to be like a twin lead? Be a transmission line?
Actually, that's a great point. A twin lead is, remember the back in the day where you actually had an FM antenna that you put on the back of your stereo with the 8 track and it come up with the T? That is a 300 ohm twin lead. Okay. We also have a 450 ohm twin lead. We have 600 ohm twin lead. Those type of transmission lines use differential signaling. Okay, that is the thing that can run 300 meters if you want. Maybe not 300 meters. Hey, they're supposed to run 1,000 meters. So yes. Anyway, so yes, it's we're going to get to that. Okay. Okay. So I have a question for everybody. How many conductors does a coax have? One conductor?
Two.
We have one. Somebody said two. Who said two?
Two.
Me.
Okay, two. I'm gonna turn myself into an auctioneer. Hey, wait, one conductor. Two conductors, right? Where are the two conductors? First of all, I want to know what your one single conductor is. This is that conductor? Is it a conductor? Yes. So is it a conductor? Okay. So do you want to rethink your answer?
Well, that's a point.
Okay. Well, who said two? Okay, whoever said two, you're also wrong.
What? Well, it depends if you're really splitting hairs or not. I know there's two different pieces of metal, but they're kind of touching each other, so they're kind of the same
Yeah.
thing.
Okay. Well, if you decided that two is your answer, you're 2/3 correct. Okay. In reality, the answer is 3. Okay. This is where 1 + 1 = 3. This is the new math that your kids have been learning in school. Okay. So let's figure out why the real answer is 3. And I'm dead serious about this. It's quite interesting how this came up. And this is something that I had to learn myself. And so you'll be able to amaze your ham radio friends when you ask them the same question: how many conductors does a coax have? Normal people will say 2. Electronic engineers will say 1. and other people will say 3 who ought to be committed. Okay, so let's talk about that. And the reason why I bring this up is because it's important when we talk about unbalanced systems. Okay, so a BALUN has to do with a balanced system and an unbalanced system. We talked about the balanced system. Okay, equal signals on two conductors. Okay. Now we're talking about unbalanced system. Let's talk about what that is. Unbalanced systems transmit signals through a single conductor, i.e. the coax center conductor. Okay, that's where its main RFs go, right? With the second conductor, typically the ground or shield, serving as a reference point. So it is ground. And what's this plugged into? The transmitter. The transmitter is supplying the reference ground, okay? Ground is not really 0 volts. It's and I don't want to get into electronics 101. Maybe you have a really easy way to explain how ground is really a reference value.
Well, a good example of that is, a handheld transmitter. It's not hooked to ground, but it has similar setup, it has a center conductor that goes to the antenna.
Right.
And the shield.
So somewhere in here, somewhere in the HT, there's a reference
To
ground, reference to ground, right? So it's not, it may not be 0 volts. It could be something other than that, and generally it is.
And automobiles, another one, rubber tires, but
Yep.
the chassis is ground.
Yep. And it's all reference to, in this case, the battery, right? So, okay. So just know that the ground or the shield is the reference point, and it's, yeah.
Einstein said everything is relative.
Exact. Einstein was so right. He was right in other realms that he probably had a clue on this stuff. Okay, unbalanced system, and this is why just running coax is so horrible. Unbalanced systems are more vulnerable to external noise because the signal is carried on only one conductor, and any interference will affect the signal integrity. Okay, so coax is good for about 100 feet with run-of-the-mill coax, right? You want to keep this length as short as possible, okay? Now, there's good things about running coax. One, it's simple and it's cheap, okay? You just screw it on and you have things done. So as long as it's smaller, the distance is small, then you can deal with the noisy environments, okay? It doesn't come into play a whole lot. Now, here's where the 3 conductors come in at. The center conductor is carrying current the same way, the same current as a balanced system. So a balanced system has 2 conductors, right? We're going to call it a positive and a negative, but that's not really true. I'm just differentiating a black and a red, okay? A coax has a single conductor, and because is the RF transmission that we're sending out from our radio DC power or AC power? It is AC power, okay? Alternating current. That is what the center conductor is doing. The current is for a cycle going this direction, and for the next cycle, the next direction. It's going back and forth, okay? And if you're running it on a 223.96 megahertz system, what's happening to this? This is going back and forth 223,930,000 times per second, okay, on our repeater, okay? This is the thing that blows my mind, how unimaginably fast this is. So you have the current going forward, and it only does it doesn't do it at the same time. So it goes forward and then back, forward and then back. The inner skin, how many people have heard of skin effect on electronics? Okay, so skin effect is where when you attach a conductor to an electrical source, the electrons tend to go on the outside of the conductor, okay? So if you were to look at our Heliax cable that goes up to our tower, you'll notice that the center conductor is hollow. It's not a solid center conductor. Why? Well, because the electrons do not travel on the inside, the middle of the conductor. It all goes on the outside, okay? So that's why you look at these conductors and they're hollow pipes, okay? Because all the electrons are on the outside. Okay, so the conductor, the shield, that's the word I'm looking for. The shield is acting as the reference ground, but there's something that happens to the shield. It has an inner conductivity system going on and an outer skin effect that's going on. Okay? So if you've ever heard of common mode current, that is a thing that runs on the outer skin. Okay? It is different from the inner skin reference. Okay? And so in reality, a single coax can handle or can actually be running 3 separate signals. Okay? The reference, inner skin, the common mode current on the outer skin, and the actual main conductor that's sending the signal. Okay, the EC going back and forth. Crazy stuff, but that's what happens. Okay. So, and this is why this is called a single-ended transmission line, because it's just a single transmission line as compared to a twin lead, which has dual transmission lines. Okay. And I have a diagram a little bit. So why do balanced and unbalanced systems need a balun? Well, we need some type of magic fluid in there to have the balanced talk to the unbalanced, and vice versa. Because remember, a transmission line is also a receiver line, right? I want to hear what I'm talking, the person who's talking to me, right? So I not only am dealing with a balanced to unbalanced transmission line, but a unbalanced to balance. So this balun has to do 2 things. It's translating the signal both directions. Okay, so when you're interfacing a balanced system with an unbalanced system, such as connecting a dipole antenna, which is a balanced system, to a coaxial cable, which is an unbalanced system, a balun is required. Okay, when you go to a regular dipole, I need to put a balun in between it so that you get the right impedance, and there's a bunch of other stuff that's going on. So the antenna will like what it's seeing, and ultimately you get all of the RFs. If I'm sending 100 watts out of my radio, I want pretty much all 100 watts on my antenna, right? I don't want it to come back as a common mode current back to me, okay? That's where we get high SWR and very poor performance, both receive and transmit, okay? Because it works both ways. So a balun not only converts the balanced system to the unbalanced signals, but it also matches the impedance between the 2 systems. So you could have a 600 ohm antenna, and this is looking for 50 ohms. This is a 50 ohm transmission line. My radio is a 50 ohm load, right? It's looking for a 50 ohm antenna, right? Well, I can't hook directly a 600 ohm antenna or a 3600 ohm antenna to a 50 ohm antenna without breaking stuff. So I have to put something in between.
Yeah, it's kind of like the old TV sets. Came out with 300 ohms, and you wanted to match that to the antenna, so you needed the balun, which was nothing more than impedance matching transformer.
Which is that little thing that you unscrewed, you hooked it in, and you put your coax on it, and that's exactly what you were doing. Yeah. We've used them all of our lives, and we haven't realized it, at least those of us old enough to remember those days. Now when I tell my kids rabbit ears, they just look at me like, Dad, you're so old. So it is what it is. What am I going to say? Okay. So without a balun, the system may experience, it will experience impedance mismatches, okay, leading to signal reflections. What's a signal reflection? Signal coming back, right? Power losses and increased noise. And you can break your radio most radios can handle short bursts of bad signal coming back, but when you're putting 100 watts back into it and you're not you keep on transmitting just hoping you'll get out, you could be destroying your radio. So these issues degrade the overall performance, obviously, and so we don't want to do that. So that's why the BALUN is required. So let's talk about how a BALUN works. This is where the fun stuff is. All of what we talked about today up until now was just definitions. We needed to know what a balanced line was on an unbalanced line. Okay, so at its very basic core, right? A BALUN functions as kind of like a power splitter with a key difference. While devices like power dividers split a signal into two in-phase signals, a BALUN produces two signals that are out of phase by 180 degrees, and we're going to take a look at that. The single-ended input, which is the unbalanced line, is matched to the transmission line impedance, typically 50 ohms. We've already talked about that, while the balanced outputs carry equal and opposite signals. So here's an example. The first diagram shows we have the unbalanced. This is a coax. This is the center conductor, and this is the shield, okay, that plugs into your radio. This is the BALUN. This BALUN is creating two leads, and some of them have a ground cap, some of them don't. We're not going to get into specifics of why we need one of those. Forget about it in this class, okay? Just know, this is, okay, so this right-hand side is really what we're going to be talking about. Coax on the left, the unbalanced, we have this windings. We know that we have windings because that's the signal, that's the diagram of what a winding is, whether it's an inductor or a transformer, right? So that means windings. And then on the other side, we have balance. This is denoted as plus minus. That's a loose translation. It's a signal that's 180 degrees out of phase from one another, okay? And so that right here is the BALUN, okay? On one side of the BALUN, we have coax. On the other side, we have a dipole antenna, okay, or some other device. So, more on how does a BALUN works. Let's see. In frequency domain terms, one output is the negative phase of the other. In time domain, this means that when one balanced output has a positive voltage, the other has a negative voltage. And here's a great example of showing the difference between the two. The top is what happens when, to the center conductor, when we are running on coax. The center conductor is carrying the current, okay? And on a differential or a balance line, you can see that plus signal is going up as much as the voltage is going down, and it's 180 degrees out of phase, okay? So let me just write something on the board. People on Zoom can see this. I just want to make a point. Everybody knows this is a sine wave, right? If I'm going to be in phase with this sine wave, I'm going to send a wave that matches it perfectly. Okay, so this is a complete wavelength, whatever that is. It could be, we'll call this 223.960 megahertz, which is 1.25 meters, approximately. So this here is approximately 1.25 meters long. That's the wavelength, okay? And it's oscillating 223 million times a second, okay? That's the frequency. Frequency and wavelength. To be 180 degrees out of phase, let me put my zero reference point here. To be 180 degrees out of phase, it's going to look like this. Okay? That is a signal 180 degrees out of phase from this first signal. Okay? That is really what's happening here. Okay?
wouldn't 180 degrees out of base be starting where it crosses?
Oh.
He's saying.
Whoa. I was 90 degrees out of phase.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that I did not show this on Zoom.
He was just testing.
I was testing the class. Yes. And that's the story I'm sticking with. 180 degrees out of phase is this here. Okay.
And they
So-
would cancel.
Say again?
They would cancel
And they cancel.
if they're the same.
Yeah. So thanks, Jay. I'm looking at that and I'm looking at this and in my mind I'm thinking, why does this not match up? So
There's your cosines and sines mixed up.
I tell you what, yes. So the Zoom people, just know that I know what I'm talking about, okay? And by the way, I have some land in Florida I'd love to sell you. So, okay. So the question is, can I make a BALUN? You can go on the store, you can go to DX Engineering, go to MFJ, well, back in the day. You could go to Amazon and you could buy a BALUN for 85 bucks, okay? Yay! Well, can I make one? It is very, very simple. It is extremely easy. There's different ways in order to do this. The simplest way is to take a length of coax like I have here, and right before it goes into the antenna, make a 4-inch loop and loop it at least 6 times. That's called an open core BALUN. It's also called I'm sorry? It's a, what is it?
Ugly balance.
Ugly BALUN. Yeah. Used on a J-pole, used on verticals, used on a lot of antenna systems, okay? This is the poor man's way of preventing that current to come back on itself, okay? So right off the bat, you already have a BALUN available to you, and it's technically not a BALUN, it's a choke, but it's an open core. I'm going to call it a balanced. You're really not changing a unbalanced to a balance. You're just creating a choke so you don't get common current back. So, which is one of the main reasons why you want to put a BALUN on your systems, to prevent common mode current. And we'll talk about that later on. Okay, that's another presentation. Okay, so this is the easiest way to help your antenna system. Let me ask you this. We're not going to talk about it a lot, but can anybody tell me why you don't want common mode current to come back down on the line? SWR is one big reason. So what happens, remember that diagram on the screen where you had a level of coax and I showed the skin of the outer skin that can carry 2 signals, okay? If things are not matched up perfectly, the current has to go somewhere, okay? It's a law of physics. It's like the current will find ground, okay? Whether it's through you or through your neighbor or through your radio, okay? It will find ground, okay? When the lightning strikes, it will find ground, okay? Just hope that you're not in its path, right? So if things are not matched up correctly, that extra current is going to come back down the transmission line, okay, on the outside of the shield, okay? We want to prevent that. This helps prevent that. Yeah. Okay, so that's the easiest and simplest way to do it, and you can do that right now while you're building a more expensive BALUN. The next step is to take a length of coax and wrap it around a toroid, and I have some pictures of that as we go on here. And when you do that, you're actually making a transformer. Okay, what happens when you what happens when you wrap wire around a ferrite core or a metal core of any type? What happens? There's an interesting thing that happens. You can make a magnet out of a nail, right? By just putting current, if you have your wire wrapped around the nail, a 9-volt battery, and you can make it into a magnet. Why? You're creating a magnetic field, and it's done by the electromagnetic forces that are going on, right? And we can talk about induction, but we're not going to. But my point is, by taking a toroid and looping coax through it, then you're making a transformer, because that's all a transformer is, loops around a core, right? Those loops are consisted of wire or coax. Electrons are electrons. They go around a core. The next method is to take wires and do a similar thing where you're actually winding the wires around a toroid and adding a bunch of stuff to it. And I'm going to show pictures of it anyway. So here we go. So here's the air core BALUN. And again, this is a loose translation of what a BALUN is, the air core stuff. This really just takes care of the common mode, current coming back at you. But there it is. A very easy thing to do. A lot of people do it that way. Okay.
Students always ask me, why doesn't it have an iron core or a silver core? And the answer is that those frequencies are useless. That's why it does. The air core is the only thing that'll work.
Excellent. And
Could you repeat that?
that's actually a good point. So yeah, go ahead and repeat that.
Yeah. In a transformer, typically we think of one with, iron plates, because that's a low frequency, 60 cycle. But at higher frequencies, then we start using ferrite cores, because they'll be able to shift their fields fast enough. But at real high frequencies, even a ferrite core can't shift frequencies back and forth fast enough at 229 megahertz. So we have to use air core. It's not very efficient, but it works.
So air core stuff that I'm showing here work great for the UHF and VHF frequencies, right? The other things are used more for HF frequencies, the lower frequency stuff, and we'll see that. Although people will use this multiple windings around a 4-inch or a 3-inch tube like you see here, and call it.
It's important that they not overlap, because if they overlap, they can actually transfer that skin effect from one skin to the other.
Correct.
That's interesting.
Yep. And so here's some more. Okay, so here's an idea where this guy named Dave, he uses a plastic bottle. This is the picture on the left. And he winds his coax around it. And on the inside, he has the coax coming in, and he puts a SL239 connector on it, and he puts it at the bottle cap end, right? And at the other end, kind of what is going on here. This is the same type of thing. I'm using a PVC container. I'm sorry? A pipe, yeah. And I have an SL239 connector, and I have it connected. And this actually is the same thing in here. This is just without the plastic. Yeah, this is just for ease of hooking things up and hanging, and you put your dipole on here, right? So these are all one-to-one BALUNs. Here's another one-to-one type of BALUN. The principle is identical, okay? You have an unbalanced line coming in, it comes out to a balanced line, okay? So your dipole goes out there. And again, this stuff is for HF frequencies, okay? Okay. So here's the example number 2. I'm using a coax wound around a toroid, and you have to use the right toroid. Toroids are a mixture of ferrite with other chemicals in there, and this mixture number, FT240, is the important number here. 43 is how big it is in diameter. Okay, so FT240-43, I'm sorry?
43, the ferrite type mix.
Yeah. 240 is the size, 43 is.
I have that turned around, thank you. Okay, the 240 is the mix type. No. The 240 is the size. That's in millimeters, right? No, that's not right.
Well, it's the diameter and the length.
It's the diameter.
It's almost 2.5 inches. It's 2.4 inches.
So is that in inches then?
Yeah.
Okay, so 2.4 inches, and the mix is 43. Okay, excellent. So you can, this is interesting. You see how on the left picture you have the coax going around the toroid, and on the right picture you have the coax going through the toroid. Every time the coax goes through the toroid, it does its thing. Okay, and so there's multiple ways of doing that. You can also have these little clip-on modules that go around the end of the coax. That's doing the same thing. Again, that coax is going through the core there. So this is a very, very simple way of doing it. Now, here's what you could do. You could, you can just leave it out in the open like this and plug your antenna on one side and your line that goes down to your radio on the other side. Or you can put it in a PVC and cut this off and put an SO239 on there. And you can cut this off and put 2 leads on there, and you have your 2, you can hook your dipole to it. This is probably the easiest way to do it. But there's more. I'm not done. There's more.
Hey, Dan?
Yeah.
Are you sure this is called a transformer? I've only ever heard these called chokes. Where's that term come from?
The definition of a transformer is having conductors going around a core. This is a transformer.
That's
if you
more
look,
I'll look it up. I thought a transformer required like 2 separate conductors, so you're actually like transforming something. This isn't really transforming anything.
it's matching is what it's doing. But this
You're right. I've just never ever heard this called a transformer before. You could be right though. I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah. Talk to me tomorrow at 3 a.m. when my phone is turned off.
Okay.
No. Let me finish my presentation, and it keeps, I'm going from the most basic kind of borderlines. It's really not a BALUN. It's just preventing common current to head down your line to more sophisticated stuff. I think technically these are transformers.
Okay.
Okay. As a matter of fact, go to Google Images and type in BALUN transformers, and you will see these very pictures.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, and here's the kind of what you're thinking of. This is actually making a more recognized transformer, and that's taking wires instead of the coax, but I'm doing the same thing. I'm still putting the conductors around the toroid, so this is another way of doing it. Have a good one. And here's another way of doing it. Again, this is all one-to-one BALUNs, okay? So on this particular picture, this has been put in a waterproof box. This is put in a waterproof PVC. It does this very same thing. So you have the SO239 connection, and it's so simple. You just put it around a toroid. And this is what I think we ought to make here in the club meeting. So speaking of which, is creating something like this would this be something you'd be interested in doing, in creating a BALUN here in class? That would be for HF.
I love projects like this. Yeah.
These, let me go back here. These are not made for HF or for VHF, UHF. Lower frequency, yeah. And it's funny, lower frequency, we're talking about 1.8 megahertz to 30 megahertz, right? 50 megahertz versus 224 megahertz. So, but if you're doing any type of HF, to me, let me ask you this. What's this most simplest antenna you could ever come up with in HF? A dipole, right? That's, you take a speaker cable, you pull it apart, 16 feet on one side, 16 feet on the other, and you hook it to these little conductors right there, the little wing nuts, and you have your HF antenna running on whatever the 32 feet is. Say again?
Probably AM side.
Possibly, yes. So this is what, if not this type here would be the class would be done in 10 minutes. In either way, this is the thing, yeah, we'd like to solder ends though. I mean, let's make a class out of it, right? So regardless of doing it this way or this way, we still need that FT240-43 toroid. So that would be really the only cost. And
what frequency range did you say that would?
That's for HF. So all the way down to 1.8 megahertz, all the way up to 50 megahertz, 10 meters, 6 meters. This is what this is for. And as a matter of fact, if you do 6 meters, you actually have to put a, I think you have to put a capacitor.
You have to do that anyway,
Right here.
even for just HF. Below 6 meters, you have to have that anyway.
So, I've been looking online, most of them are 41 or 49 to 1 to shorten the wires.
So those are ununs, okay? That is another class. I did not want to confuse anything. I was going to talk about baluns and ununs. Ununs is unbalanced to unbalanced. A balun is balanced to unbalanced, okay? It uses a completely different, it uses the same concepts here, and I think you need to understand what an unbalanced line is versus a balanced line. Okay, that's the first step. The next step is going into the ununs where we create half-wave end feds, where we put the transport. Now we're talking about impedance mismatches, like horrible. 3,500 ohms trying to match up to a 50 ohm. Well, it doesn't work without a transformer, a matching transformer. And so you make this is a 1-to-1 balun. You make a 49-to-1 unun.
So it's just mislabeled on Amazon.
Well,
I wouldn't doubt it.
there's a guy that does a video, and people get mad at him for saying ununs, baluns, chokes. And yet, when you go in and look them up, there's really kind of a smoke and mirrors sort of thing. They all really apply to the same concept of matching your radio to the antenna that you're using.
Yep, exactly.
And so to say, well, that's not an UNUN, that's a BALUN. Well, it depends on kind of what you're doing with it before you say that's not a.
Yeah, so, and let me tell you why I'm going to agree with you 50% on that.
And that's, yeah.
So, real quickly, one of my favorite antennas that I like to make is a 49-to-1 UNUN for a half-wave end fed. I love half-wave end feds. Reason being is you have a single wire as your antenna that's 64 feet long for the band that I'm working. Right here is the transformer. The impedance point at this point here is like 3,500 ohms. Okay, and I need my radio to be talking at 50 ohms. Okay, there's a problem there. So this right here is unbalanced, and this right here is unbalanced. Okay, and that's why this is called an UNUN, unbalanced to unbalanced. Okay, this is so unbalanced. You got high current and high voltages going on here, and this is one antenna that you don't take the end of the antenna and see if it's working with your tongue. You don't do it with these antennas, or any antenna for that matter. For goodness sakes, okay. So yeah, this is definitely an unknown. This can never be called a BALUN because this is not a balanced line over here.
Right.
Okay.
But what I'm kind of getting at is you got to realize that Amazon isn't knowledgeable to what we're talking about and what we're doing with them.
So if you're studying for your technician's class through Amazon,
Wrong place.
wrong place. Yeah, exactly. You had a comment.
I was wondering why you would want unbalanced or unbalanced. It seems like that would not do what you want for SWR.
I get a perfect 1-to-0 SWR
Well,
off that.
and the UNUN is.
But
also-
more importantly, I'm getting whatever wattage I'm putting out here, I'm getting out on the wire. Nothing coming back. And that's the measure. That is why I love these antennas. And I like it because you can cut this so that it is exactly at the frequency you're transmitting on. So this is like a half wave. This is a complete half wave. It's not a quarter wave, 5/8 wave. This is a half wave, okay? A 49-to-1 UNUN works with a half wave. It would never work with a quarter wave or a 5/8 wave, for example. It has to be a half wave. So, yeah.
That's a long antenna, it's pretty low frequency.
Yeah, well, this is half of what the wavelength really is, right?
What wave?
So what band is that?
128 feet long
Yeah,
for the wavelength,
yeah.
200 hertz.
Believe it or not, I've got 131 foot that goes to 80 meters.
Yeah. So I have a 64 foot, I also have a 32 foot. This is for 40 meters, and the 32 foot is 20 meters.
Well, you take like a KSL, that's about 96 feet. So, that's a pretty long antenna,
Yeah,
but that's 1160 kilohertz.
yeah,
It's,
Yeah.
And that's quarter wavelength.
yeah. All correct.
What I was gonna say, Dan,
Yeah,
is your UNUN there is effectively also your transformer.
that is a transformer,
Yeah,
yeah.
it can be called both things, and they'd be correct.
You got the toroid here doing all kinds of windings and coming in here and going out there.
Is your head spinning, Justin?
I can't really tell. There's a difference, right? A balun could be maybe a transformer or maybe not a transformer. But I'm pretty sure a transformer actually needs two separate coils. And just FYI, I Googled that and all of the pictures didn't look like your picture.
We can make baluns with two coils. Okay, we can do that, but that's not the definition of a balun. A balun transformer is exactly what I've described. You have wires going around a substance, a ferrite substance.
Yeah, but again, that's not necessarily a transformer. It could be a balun, but maybe not a transformer, right? Might just be a choke.
He's back to that.
Okay.
It can be all of those.
In today's world, you can be anything you want to. It just identifies, it's identifying as a transformer, okay? This is going to be taken off of YouTube. Okay.
Sorry, I got you. I just sidetracked there. It makes more sense now that, I mean, the word itself tells you it's balanced to balance or balanced to unbalanced. So,
yep.
But the physics of it is similar, and the technology is.
It's matching impedance. It's matching what the radio wants to see. It doesn't care what the antenna is. He just knows that based on an antenna that, like on this one here, based on 64 feet, if you measure the impedance on there, you'll see that it's coming back at 3,500 ohms or whatever that value is. It's something way high, right? And so we use a 7-to-1 or a 7-to-2 windings, which is where you get the 49-to-1. And so there's magic in the windings that you do when you do that. Everything that all of the diagrams that have been on here is for a 1-to-1 balun. Okay, so make sure everybody understands this. This is only balun. This is only a 1-to-1 balun. They make a 1-to-4 balun. That's a very common balun as well. That's looking for a 200 ohm load. Okay, most antennas aren't 200 ohms. So unless you have a reason for a 4-to-1, don't buy it. Okay, you're looking for a 1-to-1. Okay, that's the important thing. My antenna tuner, as a matter of fact, most antenna tuners that are the larger types, it has a 4-to-1 balun built into it. And I never use it because I don't have a 200 ohm load ever out there. Maybe when I'm doing window 300 ohm stuff, I might use it, but all my ladder line is 450 ohm or 600 ohm. And so I don't even use that. So anyway, it can become mind-boggling. That's why I only want to focus on the 1-to-1 balun, what a balun is. Matching balance. Say again?
The 1-to-1 is mainly for balanced by
Yep.
dipole.
Yep. A dipole is a balanced antenna transmission line. Okay. Why is it balanced? I say it's balanced, but why is it balanced? That's almost correct.
2 arms that are equal length.
That's it. What's the definition of a balanced line? Two transmission lines, two conductors of equal length. Okay. So when you put a signal out there, what's happening is, let's say this is a half wave, the entire thing is a full wave, right? Or this is a quarter wave, this is a half, the whole thing is a half wave, and the entire antenna is acting as a radiating source, okay? And this is going back and forth, this is oscillating, whatever the frequency is, right? And so it's the length that determines the, whatever wavelength you want to transmit on, okay? And it's this here, this 1-to-1 balun, that allows you to hook your radio, which is a 50 ohm, to this is actually 50 ohm here, and it's because this is 50 ohm, this is a 1-to-1. Okay, that's where the 1-to-1 comes in at. If this were a 200 ohm, let's say this antenna is a 200 ohm, then I'd need to go 1 to 4, be a 4-to-1. 4-to-1 balun. Okay.
This question may not pertain, but when you talk about these, in the form of a transformer, there's two types of transformers, isolation and non-isolation. And, I get the impression that these ones not really, they're isolation transformers. So you don't want any electrical connection, you want it all transformed.
Yeah. Yeah. It's done by inductance, and and that's not true all the way. If we go back, all the wires there is no inductance used in the 1-to-1 balun. Okay, there's also not a center tap for ground. We did see a balun with a center. That's another discussion that's not for this class. Okay, so how many people are interested in creating a balun? Is there anybody not interested in making a balun? Okay, if you are interested, what kind of balun would you like to make? This would be for HF stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have to have a different transmitter.
Yeah. If you're going to do this, it would be if you have an HF system, or if you just want to make it just to make it. Okay.
Make it just.
If you're going to
buy an HF.
Yeah, you'll have the balun for it. Okay. So this is why, for those people who don't have an HF radio, you go on the budget side, right? You get the toroid. You can still play around. It's still worth learning to solder on the SO239. These are still good skills to have, but you don't need to do that. You can just wind it around a toroid and you're done. Okay. So I think the lowest common denominator would be coax and a toroid. Okay. So that's going to be the most expensive part of the whole thing. It used to be years ago, I could buy a 243 toroid for like $5, $6. Now they're like $12. Okay. $8.99. Okay. And so if we buy a bunch of those, that's, how much is an SO239, right? If we wanted to do type of toroid where we are winding the toroid with the epoxy or enameled wire, we would need to get more wire. I have some, but not enough for the whole class. So we would,
10?
No. If we're running 30,000 watts, we could do that. You only need like 16 gauge is pretty hefty for this type of stuff.
That's 16 solid.
16 solid, that's what you want.
Is that the enamel?
Okay.
Is that the enamel?
Yeah, it has to be enameled because let me put this around. You'll see that the conductors are right next to one another. So what that wire is, that is an insulator. Okay, so the wires can be physically touching, but they're not touching. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can I suggest that we do a 9-to-1 balun? And my reasoning is you can use a 9-to-1 balun with a random half wave antenna. Random wire antenna. Thank you. I knew I was missing something in there. And once you have that, you can put certain lengths of wire with it.
Okay.
And
So,
get your antenna.
so I'm okay with whatever type you want to do, but that 9-to-1 is an unknown. That is not a balun.
Hey, Dan?
And, huh?
Oh, hey, sorry if I talked over anyone. I can just barely hear what the audience is saying out there. But
Oh, sorry.
But
Our,
just let me know when I can ask a question.
go ahead, ask a question.
All right. What would be most useful? Let's say I want to do like 80 meter with just a minimal amount of wire. What kind of BALUN or UNUN would you need for that? Like end-fed 80 meter antenna, just.
Yeah, so you can create this one-to-one, and it'll work on any HF frequency. I don't care what it is.
And you don't think, I mean, would it be
As
better?
long as it's a dipole.
Yeah.
Or a dipole or inverted V, that all will work. And,
I mean,
and L will work. I'm
Does
sorry?
it matter if it's end-fed or center-fed or anything like that?
Yes, it does. Because now we're talking UNUNs, unbalanced to unbalanced.
So for end-fed, would that be an UNUN?
End-fed is unbalanced to unbalanced. The actual, same thing with the random wire, that's also an unbalanced transmission line.
And would you need a 9-to-1 or something like that? I mean, what would you normally use in that case?
Yeah. On a random wire, you can use a 9-to-1. There's also a 12-to-1. You can do any number of stuff. The common one is 9-to-1, 49-to-1 for a half wave end fed. For an off center, which means that you have like 6 feet on the left and 20 feet on the right. So that's off center dipole.
Mm-hmm.
That's still a dipole, but it's not in the center, which means that it's unbalanced because you don't have the same amount of leads, which means that you have a huge differential, which means that you don't get 50 ohms at your point where you're hooking to the antenna, which requires an UNUN. That would require a 9-to-1 or similar.
All right. Well, that would be my vote if it's not too obscure for everyone else.
Regardless of what type of BALUN or UNUN you do, I'm just going to call it a matching transformer, okay? Because that's what they all are, okay? A matching transformer, whether you want it for a half wave end fed or an off center wave or a dipole, we can make all of those because they use the same wires, the same BALUN, the same connection, the same SO 239. The only difference is the windings around the toroid. Okay.
Oh, good.
That's
So we can just get all the material then and then just kind of decide on the day we're going to make.
Yep.
Oh, good. Okay.
And I'm going to do some more research if we want to make something for the VHF band. To tell you the truth, I've never seen an issue that requires. I mean, first of all, we don't have. How many people use dipoles for their VHF, UHF? We don't use that, right? It's all a vertical antenna that has coils, that has its own stuff, right? So in reality, it's unbalanced on the antenna side. So we're already serving up an unbalanced line to the antenna. I'm not sure if that's the reason why we don't need a BALUN, or an UNUN. Maybe it's just the frequency. I think more than likely, it's the frequency range that we're dealing with. So.
Well, the antennas are a lot smaller, so it's a lot easier to get a resonant antenna or put a small.
Heck yeah.
Choke in there or whatever you need, and it capacitively couples to your body or whatever for a ground plane. I think it's just a lot easier to work with in some respects.
Yep. So you know that diagram that had the toroid with just the coax running through it? That would work just fine on VHF frequencies. You're not doing anything to the frequency there. It's just not doing you any good. Okay. But you can still run that BALUN as it is. If that helps that, yeah. Yeah, the common mode current chokes that are made out there. So, yeah. Any other questions or comments? Are we thoroughly confused? Are you worse? Are you confused more than before you came in? So, yeah, didn't want to get into any more. This is tough enough, right? To understanding differential circuits and unbalanced stuff.
You have to contrast the BALUN from the unknowns, because that's what's on Amazon. You have to kind of understand the difference.
Yeah.
I do better now.
So the important thing is knowing what a balanced line is and what an unbalanced line is. That was the purpose of this class, is to understanding those two. Okay. And the thing that I think is cool, we do the same thing in audio. When I have my big board here, the balanced lines, we also have unbalanced lines that we use. We have to deal with the same stuff. I can only use like 15 feet of unbalanced before I start getting noise into the and you can hear it on the speakers, right? So it works the same way. So anyway, that's all I have. Let me end slideshow.
So what I've heard is that for the dipole side of things, a lot of people don't think you need a BALUN at all. Just, I guess if you're careful with your wire measurements, then you don't need one at all. But apparently, so I was kind of wondering where you would actually practically use a one-to-one, because I haven't seen that as a big sales item on Amazon.
Yeah.
As opposed to the others where you have an end fed.
So on my vertical antenna, I have nothing more than an air core choke. Okay. And I've been running fine with that for years. Okay.
Call that a BALUN.
It's an air core BALUN. Yeah.
That one-to-one BALUN there that I put up there, that's what I use on my dipoles. When I have the same length out either side, whether it be 6 meter, 10 meter, I can't remember what all I've done with them, but I just bring them in there and hook them up to the coax.
That's just for common mode.
No, that doesn't affect common mode. That brings the two sides of the dipole together.
It's your balanced line to your unbalanced line. Yep.
I'll have to admit that unbalanced, something I'm not familiar with. I have to do some research on that.
Okay.
The characteristic of B sounds crazy to me.
When we talk about the unknowns, I'll bring in my half-wave end feds that I made, and I'll break the box open and you can see the windings and all that stuff. So.
DX Engineering has a great set of website of articles that kind of go through all this, to the different 41, 49 ones.
Yeah.
On DX Engineering. So.
Yeah, I mean, the internet is full of the same information.
I would trust DX
Engineering
better
than Dan out here. I don't blame you.
Also, LVG Electronics.
They're a great resource.
Because they sell 1-to-1 port, 9-to-1s, and that, so they will explain what they do.
Well, when I deliver presents to the boys and girls of the world on the 24th, I get so many Amazon packages that were sent that they did not know what they were ordering. They thought they were ordering an unknown and they needed a BALUN. So I have to write a little note next to it saying, talk to one of my elves in the morning. Okay. No, you need to talk to your mom about the exchange. Okay. Any other questions or comments anybody has? If not, I'm going to end the recording.